Welcome back to the breakdown of CPS Part 4. There's going to be a whole lot in this one. I'll try to get it all in one video, and I'll try to get everything in the comments. First, I'm of sound mind. I don't take any prescription drugs. I'm physically fit, mentally awake, and morally aligned. I've been conducting research and analyzing everything. Then, I'm breaking down my findings with you. I do not condone violence, and I wish no harm on anyone, including myself, and especially not the ones who could benefit from me staying silent. We see each other. Let's rewind real fast. First, we walked straight into the lobby of CPS. That's where we met the very lowest rung of the system ladder. They're the button pushers, the paper shufflers, the ones who show up in threes, sometimes with a cop, sometimes with a smirk. They look important and they act like shot callers. They want you rattled, silenced, and compliant. But hear this, they don't make any decisions. They follow prompts. They're trained to escalate, not investigate. They're not experts, they're executioners. They point, click, copy, paste, drag, drop, and destroy. The clipboard isn't power, it's their script. Their safety plan isn't help, it's a trap. And that supervisor with the stern tone, they're still reading from the exact same flowchart. They run the interface, but they don't write the code. Next, we hit the back rooms. The Title 4E architects, system designers, and the coders. They're the ones who actually built the rails that the caseworkers have to follow. We decoded how their decision trees work, how middleware routes your trauma through logic gates, and how services definitely aren't supports. They're actually behavioral capture points. Then we cracked the OS, their operating system. Middleware like Safe Measures and SACWIS, systems that turn raw emotion into metrics. They don't log what happened, they log your reaction, then they turn it into a flag, they tie it to funding, and they call that oversight. And now, here we are. We're at the boardroom. This is the state level layer. This is where trauma becomes policy and voted harm becomes law. You thought it was your caseworker that blocked reunification? Nope, the approval logic came from above. Let me break it down real quick. Between 2012 and 2019, over 30 US states entered Title 4E waivers. That means that the federal government let those states rewrite the rules, test new removal logic, new case plan timelines, and new reunification criteria, all without telling the parents. These waivers gave CPS legal immunity to experiment with predictive models, trauma recovery timelines, and service layering strategies. They never told the parents. So if your case was in that window and your state was in that group, you were likely inside a live experiment, you weren't told, and you weren't asked. But your behavior, it was coded, tracked, and monetized. And those waivers, approved by your state board. Hey, just for educational and accountability disclosure, let's take a closer look at some of the actual people signing off on these. We'll stick to first names for now. Public roles, no hate, no threat, just transparency. There's Teresa. She's a voting member, trauma modeling consultant. She's tied to the Family Success Index. She pushed the idea that secure attachment can be measured through compliance, like session punctuality and emotional tone. Then there's David. He's a data systems integrator. He wrote the Medicaid CPS logic bridge. He helped design the schema that lets your therapy notes get mirrored into billing flags. There's Angela. She's a behavioral health contractor. She backed the rollout of adaptive compliance models where trauma behavior is flagged as failure to progress if not resolved on a fixed timeline. Then there's Brian. He's an attorney, ethics reviewer. He signed off on multiple contracts allowing behavioral alignment scoring to be used in reunification hearings without the parents' knowledge. There's Sharon. She's a former psychologist, now a compliance auditor. She helped push policies where flat affect gets coded as emotional detachment and defensive posture gets tagged as attachment avoidance. Susan, Greg, Mary, Anthony, Deborah, same types, same votes, same boards, different states, and they all report upstream. Now here's the part that they don't want you to realize. You're made to believe that these state boards, even the governors, they're the ones where the change happens. So you march, you protest, and you file complaints, thinking, well, that's due process. They can fix it. But here's the truth. They don't create policy. They don't build the models, and they don't architect this system. They only vote on what's handed to them, prepackaged, pre-funded, pre-approved logic, and put right in front of them. So, when you show up thinking that they're the ones in charge, that's by design. It's a smokescreen. It's just a decoy. Because if they didn't create it, they certainly can't change it. So who created it? Who actually hands them the model? Who pays them for their time and trains them on how to vote? Well, that's the gray layer, and we're almost there. First, there's a couple things we need to understand about this gray layer. It has two primary parts. It has the companies behind the middleware, and then the real people behind the policy votes. They're not anonymous. You're just not supposed to see them. But they've seen us, and I've seen them. So let's talk about some architecture. Every behavior you show gets filtered through a logic scoring system. It's not human judgment and it's not compassion. It's flagged-based algorithms. So if you go quiet to protect yourself, you're flagged as emotional flattening, passive withdrawal, avoidant attachment. What if you comply too quickly? Manipulative traits, social impression management. Say the right thing but show emotion, flagged as discordant effect and narrative emotional inconsistency. Refuse to engage, non-participation in treatment, resistant, or defiant. It's not called therapy, it's called observational behavioral risk coding, and it's done without a single psych evaluation needed to diagnose you. Now, let's go a little bit deeper. This coding system, it's not new. It's just evolved. In 2001, a federally funded pilot began in select states. It used family court data to test AI-based trauma prediction tools against actual case outcomes. No informed consent, no caseworker knowledge, therapists were blind coded, but the data, it was harvested, matched to Medicaid billing, and sold to third-party evaluators. That pilot became the behavioral service matrix that we use today. That system, it's still running, it's still expanding, and it's still voted on by your state board. So now that we're here, let's zoom in on what these boards actually vote on. They don't vote on individual cases. They vote on the models used to process your case. They approve trauma response templates. They vote on how trauma should look, not how it does. So if your kid cries or shuts down, that's now a coded behavior with a treatment plan, not a human response. These templates lock your child into a label that justifies the case staying open. They vote on parent risk scoring models. Before you even show up in court, a predictive model has already decided how likely you are to fail. These votes pick which algorithm gets to profile your parenting based on stats, not facts. You're guilty by data set. Middleware contracts. They don't manage cases, they manage code. These votes approve the companies running the operating systems of CPS, Safe Measures, SACWIS, Accenture. If the tech routes your case to TPR, the worker just clicks accept. Service tier definitions. Flag the funding logic. They vote on what behaviors make money. Crying, anger, silence, defiance. Every flag has a Medicaid code. The more flags they check, the more dollars they bill. Your breakdown is somebody else's paycheck. Reunification timeline rules. These votes set your clock, and they run it fast. One missed visit or failed task, and they call it failure to progress. They don't wait for change. They wait for the time to expire so that they can adopt out. And every one of those votes creates the system architecture your life gets judged inside. What's actually happening here is called forced behavioral standardization. You're being judged not on your love, not on your actions, but on your ability to match statistically normal emotion patterns after state-inflicted trauma. It's institutional equivalent of gaslighting through compliance metrics. The system wants you calm, insightful, apologetic, grateful, regulated, open, but only in the exact way that their data models expect. Anything outside of that is flagged. And the kicker, most trauma responses don't match those standards. So your grief gets coded as instability, your distrust an obstruction, and your fight is unfitness. Let me leave you with this loop. How many flags did your grief trigger? What diagnosis was built from your defense mechanisms? What funding stream did your survival pay for? And how long have they been watching families like ours? Everything in this video is for educational purposes. I'm not a lawyer or a therapist. This is not legal or clinical advice. Names used are publicly listed board members, and they're shared for accountability and transparency. Please do not contact or threaten anyone. This is exposure, not vengeance. This is architecture, not hate. Comments will include my sources, and the gray layer is next. Please like, share, comment, and repost. Thank you. I appreciate you.